Veliki pozdrav ljudi, evo nas sa novom epizodom podcasta. Nalazimo se u Sarajevu, tačnije na Trebeviću, kao što vidite na našoj popularnoj bob stazi, gdje se redovno crta. Povod posjete ove lokacije je fasada festival koji je trenutno u toku. Imamo razne goste iz regije, ali i iz Evrope. I jedan od njih je upravo ovaj gospodin koji sjedi kraj mene. Prvi put imamo gosta koji nije sa Balkana, tako kažem. To je grafiti crtaž iz Engleske pod tagom Tizer. Tizer, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, bro. How are you?
Welcome to Bosnia.
Thank you.
I just did an intro, a little bit, telling the people about you and about the festival that's going on, Fasada Festival.
Yeah.
You're a guest of the festival, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So, this is your first time in Bosnia.
It is my first time in Bosnia.
And what do you think so far?
It's really beautiful. It's an incredible city. I haven't seen much of the country besides the city, but it's really beautiful.
Okay.
Great.
You're here since yesterday or the day before?
I got here yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So, I came with a friend of mine, Argon, who was doing a talk yesterday about Priština and how he took over the kind of public space and with graffiti and street art.
Cool, great. You came yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we did a wall right away. So
yes,
you have energy. You're good.
Yeah. No, I like painting. I like painting. So
paint.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Good. Well, the people who don't know you, you're from England.
I'm originally born in America.
In America?
In
okay.
Nebraska. My mother was British. Parents got divorced in 1982. We moved to England and lived with my aunt and uncle for a year and a half, and then we got our own flat in South London.
Okay, and since then you're in London?
Yeah, I was living in London. When I was 19, I lived in Australia, in Melbourne for 1 year.
Okay.
Like on a year working visa.
Nice. And now you're living in Priština, which
yes.
is very interesting to us.
Yeah. So me and my friend, this one, we decided he's been going to Priština for the last 5 years for meeting styles. He's been trying to get our friends to go there because he really liked it. I went last year. I fell in love with it, and we decided to move there.
Really?
Yeah.
Just like that?
Yeah, we just decided we wanted to live somewhere different.
Okay, that's not. I mean, normally we see guys from Balkans moving to
To
Western
the
Europe, to England or to Germany.
Yeah, a lot of people think that we're a bit crazy doing that, but it's,
me too. To
right.
be honest.
Well, it's a different scene, and I think it's there's room to evolve there, and we really want to kind of help the scene and try to push it.
That's nice.
Hopefully, next year we want to open up a graffiti store and kind of gallery space. We really would like to try to bring famous artists there, as well as kind of b-boys and rappers, and try to build a kind of hip-hop scene there.
Okay.
Just because there isn't really any older people there that still paint, so some of our knowledge would be quite helpful to the younger generation there.
Of course. I'm not that quite familiar with the scene in Priština. I was never there.
Yeah.
I mean, I went from Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia, Slovenia, and this kind of part of Balkan.
Yeah.
But to Albania and Kosovo, I was never there. So tell me a little bit about it. How is it?
It's really cool. People are super nice there. It's something like 70% of the population are under 35. So it's a young scene there, and that's why I think b-boying, breakdancing, hip-hop and graffiti will really kind of flourish there if it's pushed in the right direction.
And how big is the scene? How many riders do we talk?
I would say there's probably about 12 people, mostly women. There's more women riders there than there are men, which I think might be the only country in the world that's like that.
Yeah, interesting.
But there's some really good riders there. People don't paint that much, but I think once we're there and we're kind of pushing them, I think they'll come and paint more. Just because I don't think there is a really kind of close scene at the moment. And if we are able to open up a graffiti shop and get cheaper paint there, it will be easier for people to meet up and actually become friends and start painting together. Yeah, hopefully.
Nice. I heard that the Meeting of Styles festival was organized there a few years ago. One of our guys actually wanted to go, but we have these visa issues with Kosovo, so
Yeah.
he at the end he didn't. How was?
Yeah, I've
were
been
you
I've been 2
there?
years in a row. So
Okay.
that's set up with Argon and his partner CB,
Mm-hmm.
and it's they saw. I think they went to I think maybe Germany, like maybe about 7 years ago, and then they saw Meeting of Styles there, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! Let's do it there."
Mm-hmm.
They asked Manuel if they could do it. He denied them, so they just did it anyway. And then
I heard of that.
he liked how they just were cheeky and took it over his name and stole the thing. But yeah, he came last year.
Oh, so it's not official.
Oh, it is now.
It is now.
After they did it the first
By force.
Yeah, by force. So,
Balkan style, yeah.
yeah. So he came last year and he really enjoyed it and thought it was a really good a good scene, because normally it's done in the same place every time, and they try to do it in a different part of the city. So they're trying to take over the city with art, really.
Okay.
So
I heard some stories that some of the organizers got arrested.
Yeah, he got arrested the first year.
Okay.
He locked himself in the car and he was telling everybody they're pickles or something, which is really offensive over here,
Oh, wow.
over there or something. I don't know.
You didn't have the permits, right?
No, he didn't have the
Oh my
permits.
God.
They just took over the whole road and did it by force, and
That's
got
nice.
arrested, then de-arrested, and then they kind of realized that there was
Any
holes.
big penalties or something?
No, he basically I think in every country, if it's public space, then you actually have a lot more. If you do things as a protest, then it's
Okay.
you're allowed to do protests or things
That's
in
a
public
nice
space.
loophole.
Yeah. So they kind of figured that out. I think last night he was doing a talk to try to help the scene here in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So which is really exciting, because I think you could probably do that in England without people really knowing that as well.
Great.
So
I mean, it would be. I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense. Well, normally the police wouldn't think that you're doing something without a permit. If you see 50 people painting there,
yeah.
you go by. Okay, they surely have a permit, but they just didn't care. That's interesting. Approach.
Well, they did. They arrested him, and then they had to get the mayor involved and stuff like that. And
Okay.
then he knew loopholes within the kind of
Okay.
infrastructure.
They helped them out.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I mean it's a good thing. It's a positive thing.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, graffiti and street art they're positive things. It's artwork by the people for the people. So I've always realized how important it was, even when I was doing naughty stuff. You know, because it was inspirational to me as a child, and it's the only art form that was made up by children. So it should be allowed, I think. But
Sure.
I'm biased, obviously. And I mean, I understand why people hate graffiti, but fuck them.
That's a nice approach. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're 47 years
Yeah.
old. Okay. I
Yeah.
told you yesterday that you look much younger. I
Thank
was
you.
surprised.
Thank you.
And so you started painting really early, I mean,
Yeah,
in the 80s, right?
Yeah, late 80s. Me and my brother, we were first into punk music, and then English punk and ska started to die, and English punk musicians started making disco rap music. So we thought, oh, hip hop's the new punk. So we switched over and started fully getting involved into hip hop. And by '88, my brother was 14, I was 12. My friend Ossie, and my other friend Joe, we just started doing tags. And I mean,
Which generation you belong? I mean,
I would say probably third generation.
Third generation in London?
In London. I mean, we found out recently that two of the members from Madness, the band, were doing New York style graffiti in the 70s in London, but I personally didn't know that. I know there was punk and skinhead graffiti before that. By '82, there was people doing New York style graffiti by 1980, but it was kind of small and sporadic, and then by '82, '83 it really started to kind of evolve, and then by '84 when the famous Subway art book came out with Martha Cooper, and that's when it was a massive explosion. Also when
the movies.
Yeah, but then it was mostly to do with Buffalo Gals, the video. When it first came out, it was the first time anybody saw breakdancing, and then Dondi outlining letters with a spray can. So
Nice.
a lot of people were inspired by that video, and literally the next day, everybody went out and started doing that kind of stuff. I mean, there was already kind of political graffiti,
of course,
anti-bomb, anti-nuclear stuff, because at the time everybody thought we were going to get die from nuclear dawn. So,
like today.
but it was full paranoia. So we actually thought that most people didn't think. We thought by the year 2000 we'd be flying in spaceships, or we'll be dead. You know, it'd be Mad Max or flying cars. You know? None of that happened.
Look at us now here in Sarajevo now on a fucked up bobslide.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we just for us, because me and my brother were white kids, we could be part of hip hop without people knowing who we were. Do you know what I mean? So we could still be important within hip hop, even though no one knew what we looked like.
Was that a big aspect of graffiti that this, you know, that you were always like unknown in the background, and you had like this double life?
Yeah, for sure. Like
for me, that was like a big thing. I mean,
back then you would never tell anybody that you did graffiti because they could get you in trouble with the police. So you would never tell girlfriends that you did graffiti. You rarely tell your close friends. I mean, if they were close friends, they knew. Yeah. And that's who I kind of did it for, was for my close friends. They were like, oh, I saw you here, here and there, kind of stuff like that, because they knew my tag and things like that. So it was, I don't know, it was a really kind of underground thing at that time. And not many people did do graffiti. Yeah. I mean, there was, in the UK, we were sold, well, the whole of Europe, we were sold graffiti, hip hop as a package. So it was like B-boy,
4 elements.
Yeah, all the 4 elements came from hip hop.
Or 9,
so,
like Keras would say.
Yeah. Or 78, as Relay would say. Yo-yoing, the 78th.
Exactly. Nice.
It was just it was an exciting time for us, and it was rebellious, but it wasn't too rebellious. Do you know what I mean? It was.
Sure. Let me ask about this 4 elements philosophy. I mean, later on, when you asked like these old school legends from New York, they didn't actually look at hip hop like that.
Yeah, of course not.
I mean, they were like it came up at the same time.
Graffiti was first.
Yeah.
So like if you look at all of the expressions, it was like, oh, that style's rockin', or it's funky, or do you know what I mean? So it was like even the terminologies come from the music that young people were listening to at that moment. So that was way before hip hop. And b-boying came from, well, because New York had people from everywhere. So if you look at the dance form, it has early jazz dancing, Russian dancing. Most of it came from discos, where people, when they fell over, they were trying to style out how they came up. But then also capoeira, because of the Brazilian element. So because people's legs were shackled, that's why they did things upside down. You know, it's so there was that came way before that, and then I guess people, because of the Jamaican element of people toasting, also, but then you could look further back and you could look at like calypso, and how calypso artists would cuss each other in their songs. So it was like a battling kind of thing. So that kind of style of battling has been in kind of Jamaican music for a long time. The reason why England got hip hop and graffiti way before most of the rest of Europe was because of the Jamaican element, where most families from the islands moved to New York, Canada, England, because of the and then people would send each other tapes of what was the coolest shit that was out. So, you know, you'd have people doing mixes and sending each other mixes of new reggae music to new rap music that was coming out of New York at that era, you know. So, you know, the way that we found out about different rappers or different bands was looking at the back of records and seeing the shout outs. And because if we thought that a rap group was cool, if they shouted out another group, then they must be okay.
Yeah.
So it was, you would kind of buy records by looking at the cover and being like, oh, I don't know, is it good? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? That we did the same with when I used to look for breaks. I figured out that if there was a half-naked woman on the front cover, then it was probably had some breaks because it's funky. Do you know what I mean? Oh, there's boobs on the record cover. It might have something good on it. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Or if, depending on the length of people's hair or how big their moustache was, you might find something good.
We have a truck, or what is it, back? What is it called?
A crane.
Crane coming. Okay. So going back to your beginnings, so to say, so your influence were basically the local writers, the generation before you?
Yeah. I mean,
that's your first contact with graffiti, okay,
yeah,
right?
I mean, that's the reason why I chose my name, was because Tizer is actually an English pop drink. It's like 7-Up, but it's red.
Okay.
And at the time, nobody had that name. And also, I was an English graffiti writer, but I didn't. I don't sound English and I don't look English.
Okay.
So I was never really accepted as being from there. So I wanted people to think that I was an English graffiti writer because of my name.
Okay. You wanted to integrate.
Yeah. I mean, but that was where my influence came from.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, I looked at American graffiti in backs of skateboard magazines. I was looking for tags and looking at stuff, and then also on record covers sometimes there would be graffiti.
Cool.
Yeah, there'd be graffiti sometimes, or in the back of magazines you'd always be searching for anything that was slightly graffiti, because there wasn't really magazines by that point. I mean, you could find you were always searching to find new stuff. So when I was younger, it was when we would find out about people doing pieces in a neighborhood. We'd get a train to that neighborhood and we'd do circles until we found that bit of graffiti, and then we would just sit there and try to study it or try to figure out how somebody painted it, because you just didn't really know, you know. And in England, the elder generation never really taught younger people, so they were quite selfish with their information.
Okay.
So we really had to figure stuff out ourselves.
Were there some names you remember from that period that inspired you, or that they are still painting today? Like
there's loads of people. Yeah, definitely. There's first generation people that are still painting.
Yeah.
A lot of people during the early 90s quit because they all turned into going to raves and did drugs.
Okay.
So that kind of killed off the whole first and second generation pretty much. I mean, over the years people have come back to it, especially with the Corona. A lot of people have been like, hey, I'm back, and you're like, which is great, you know what I mean, but they left, do you know what I mean? And they kind of still want the same respect, but they left, do you know what I mean? So I mean, I remember them, but the younger generation, they don't give a fuck who they are. They're like, who the fuck's this old guy? Do you know what I mean? Like, But, you know, it's...
What's your philosophy in that? I mean, that's a very interesting point. I would like to know what you think about it. Graffiti is like, you need, of course, everybody needs to be active, you know, to paint regularly. Not just, I mean, illegal or trains or street, whatever, but even, you know, Hall of Fames and stuff like that. Is it, to your opinion, that if you stop for a while, that you're out of the game? And
it depends. The problem is with graffiti, the minute you stop, people forget you, unless you did something important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can see that with friends of mine who stopped for a few years. You mention their name to younger people, and they're like, "Who?" And you're like, "Really? You don't know that person? Like, how do you not know that person?" You know. But I guess it's up to you and what you find exciting. So, you know, you can't really demand people to remember specific things unless it was important to them. You know. I guess, I don't know. But I think the older you get, the more you kind of search for information. So I'm more inclined to try to find out the kind of history of each city I go to, or try to find out who were important players within those city boundaries, or in the countryside, or that country, you know. So especially when you meet older people from New York or LA or Philadelphia or parts of America, it's really interesting to me to find out where the kind of the origins come from.
Yeah.
You guys can come past if you want.
Yeah, sure. Did you ever had periods where you stopped? You had enough of graffiti and then, I don't know, or did it less? Or?
Well, I mean, I went out in my 20s. I went out with a girl who hated graffiti. So for a long time I didn't tell her I did graffiti, and then her sister saw me do a tag when my girlfriend was across the street. She was like, "Oh," and then told my girlfriend, and she was like, "Oh." And then she really didn't like it, so I really slowed down, and went around kind of 22 to 23, and then I was still doing tags when I wasn't with her, but not as much as I was, because before that I was really trying to get up as much as possible. And for a long time I was only doing marker tags. That's all I was really interested in. I just really like tagging with markers.
It has something.
Yeah, I just like doing insides of buses and insides of tubes or stations or stairwells, or I'd go to stops and then get off and then do circles and try to get as many tags up as possible. At certain points I was trying to get 60 tags a day, and if I didn't, I'd have to do more the next day or less. Do you know what I mean? That was kind of a real thing for me for a long time. Graffiti's always been good for my mental health. It was good escapism for me.
Yeah?
Yeah. When I paint, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just trying to do that thing.
Form of therapy.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I think it's really important to push it for younger people, because it might save them too. I mean, graffiti can be terrible for some people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Some people might come from good families and it might turn them into total assholes. But on the whole, if you take graffiti seriously, it can enhance your life.
Yeah.
If you do it in the right way, I guess.
Did you, at that period with the girlfriend, when you, let's say, painted not that often, did you felt that on your, like you said, mentality?
Yeah. I
really unhappy.
I tried to go to university and do. At the time, it was still free to go to university in England. So
it's not anymore.
No. The people that made it not free had free education. Cunts. But yeah, it was like I wanted to study animation because I wanted to get my characters move. I've always found doing characters easier than doing letters.
Okay.
Just because as a kid I used to draw characters, so for me it's quite easy to make them up, like spontaneous, like instantly. I'm really badly dyslexic, so everything for me is visual. So I can, if I'm painting with somebody, I can say, "Oh, what kind of character do you want?" And somebody would say like an alligator in a suit, and I sort of know what an alligator looks like for me to be able to make it look like an alligator in a suit, you know. So characters for me was a lot easier than doing lettering, because lettering has structure balance. So.
Yeah.
But I like doing both. At one point, I realized that I needed to get better at my lettering because I didn't want to be the character guy that sucked at letters. So over the last 20 years, I've really tried to get better at doing lettering. But some people will always think that I suck, so it's fine. You know,
It's always some people.
but no one can hate my artwork more than I hate it. So it's totally fine.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I've been there too, so it's really hard to be happy with your stuff.
Yeah, but you're not
sometimes.
meant to be.
Yeah,
and that's what
exactly.
pushes
That's
you
what
to-
drives you, right?
yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
Because once you start thinking that you're good, then you've either lost your mind or you've turned into an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So going back to this mentally, what I asked you about this break with the girlfriend, did you feel that you were at that time
Yeah, that I was.
a little bit unhappier? Or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I
So
felt.
you realized
I
that
felt
you
that I was letting the team down. Do you know what I mean? It was like, for me, I'm constantly doing tags. Do you know? I've always got a marker in my pocket, and I don't really record that because, I mean, maybe I should, but I just do. For a long time, I started doing sneaky tags, like doing it with smaller markers and in weird places, because graffiti writers will always see it, no matter where it is.
Yeah.
They'll see it. But you can be really up in a city without being obviously really up, because most people are like, oh, I'm going to do massive tags, and then they get busted by the cops, and they're like, oh, you've done loads of massive tags. But if you're doing little fucking tiny ones, people don't even notice. Do you know what I mean? You can, when you get old like me, you can lean on stuff and look at people and do tags, and they don't even know you're doing tags. You know what I mean? It's
that's good.
you can do sneaky stuff and still be relevant. You know?
Cool, great. So you basically witnessed the rise of graffiti, let's say like this, in London, and now you're in Priština, which is it's not quite at the same point, but I can imagine there are some parallels.
Yeah.
Do you think? Do
Yeah,
you see
for sure.
some? Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Tell me more.
I think that there's a lot of abandoned spaces there. So, I mean, we've been finding stuff and painting in places, but which is great because somebody will stumble across that at some point. But it's really important that we start doing more kind of street things so that people actually see stuff, and then even we want to start doing little kind of monthly jams with people in local countries coming to meet us, just to do jams in the streets so that young people can see people painting, so that they can kind of understand how to do it. You know? I think it's really important for young people, well, for everybody to see colour. Humans need to see colour and
Agree.
art and public art for them to feel free. I've realised that over the years that the people that inspired me, you become that thing as well. So you'll never know who you inspire, even by doing tags or by doing pieces in the street or throw ups or dubs. Or, you know, it's important for young people to see that, to see how to do it or where to do it or how to get over.
Okay.
But we always, me and my brother always tried to push the kind of positive sides of hip hop culture and everything that we
did. Also a lot of workshops, I saw.
Yeah. We were, me and my brother were kind of some of the first people in the UK to try to do it as a job. So we really tried to make people, general public, see graffiti in a different way and see it as something beautiful instead of something aggressive and dangerous. You know what I mean? Because that's what government has always tried to push and shut it down, is because they know that if we all came together and wrote a political thing overnight, you could change people's viewpoints. But most of the time graffiti is political in its own way, but it's not political. You know what I mean? You're bombing the system, and it's a system you don't agree with. So that's kind of guerrilla tactics anyway. But also it's beautifying ugly places. And you know, we always felt that it was really important, and we were gonna change the world. You know, like I grew up skateboarding as well, and we were the first generation of kids in London who were multicultural, multi-racial, all different religious backgrounds, and you got respect for what you did instead of what you looked like or how much money you had. So it was really going against the norm. And as a kid, being on the tube or meeting graffiti writers, the best thing is nobody knew who we were. So when we met each other, we were like, oh my God, you're a girl, or oh, you're a massive black guy, or do you know what I mean? Or you're a Jewish guy, or you're a Muslim guy, or you're a Christian guy, do you know what I mean? But it had nothing to do with any of that. And that was really exciting for me as being a young American kid in England. English people hate Americans, so we suffered a lot of racial abuse when we were kids. Like we couldn't speak on the bus because people would fuck with us, and with graffiti and skateboarding, it didn't matter that we were from somewhere else. You know, it was cool.
Yeah. I wanted to know a little bit about your Balkan connection, let's say. You're part of YCP.
Yeah.
Quite a famous group here. Yeah. I mean, some people heard of him.
Yeah.
And wanted to know how that came along, and how did you meet? And
I met Lunar, Angel, and Lortek at Meaning of Styles in Wiesbaden in 2009. Okay. I was with Jim Vision, Love Pusher, Bonsai, and another guy called Also. And we were all, it was the first night, everybody was standing there, and they walked in, and Bonsai was like tapped us and went, they look a bit fucking tough, because they came in like, and Bonsai's a short guy, and he, as a joke, he was like, come on then, let's fight. And they were like, what? And like, we instantly all like laughed and realized that we were cool. And then we kind of hung out and got drunk together most of the evenings. And then later on in 2010, Lunar invited me to Zagreb for a jam where we painted an orphanage disabled school. He brought me out to paint a school, and because he knew that I was doing youth projects and things like that, and we just became really good friends. He put me in YCP in like 2010, so I got on really well with Smack, his brother, and all of the guys. We just really clicked. They're good people.
Yeah, sure. Very nice guys.
And I liked the origins of the crew. You know, he realized after the war in former Yugoslavia that they needed to come together, and he got all of the main people from each country to join, so that the younger generations knew that it was a hip hop thing and not a violence thing. That people should be together.
It's an important message, especially
for sure.
on the Balkans, where it's
for sure
divided all over.
Well,
the place.
that's the same as me and my brother. We grew up in Brixton. In the 80s, was one of the worst neighborhoods in the UK, and we always wanted to do a kind of Zulu thing. My brother later on became a Zulu. He was chosen by the UK Zulus because they knew that we were doing youth projects. He was DJing on the radio. Also, he was writing for graffiti magazines and hip-hop magazines. So before my brother was a Zulu, we were already doing Zulu stuff and trying to enhance the scene. We were stopping wars in our city, like graffiti crew wars, because we were friends with different people. So we really tried to kind of chill out the scene and make it a more happy thing, because graffiti was always fun for us, and we thought it should be fun for everybody else, because it is. It's really fun.
Sure. Okay, great. What did I wanted to ask? About a topic that's also very popular and people talk about it, or maybe used to talk about it even more back a few years ago, is street art, which is always something that basically came from London, I would say. I mean, or not everything, but of course Banksy is the most famous example that always somebody, if talking about that, somebody mentions always him.
Yeah, but the whole, it was the late 90s, a lot of graffiti writers started doing characters instead of throw-ups. So their throw-up became characters. So street art comes from graffiti. All of the disciplines were stolen from us. Even the name street art comes from us, because Phase 2 hated the word graffiti, because what we did was 1,000 times better than that. So the reason why the book Spray Can Art was called Spray Can Art was because it's not graffiti. Because graffiti is scratching your name into a wall, into a surface. So when I was a kid, we never used the word graffiti. We called ourselves writers or bombers or spray can artists. You know what I mean? We'd never even used the word graffiti. And then in England, the media really tried to make a separation between street art and graffiti, saying one was great and the other one people should go to prison for. And that made a real kind of divide within the scene, because in the late 90s, early 2000s, street artists in the UK were painting with graffiti writers, because we were all graffiti writers. Do you know what I mean? It was all graffiti. Do you know what I mean? Back then there wasn't people. We had halls of fame, but you could still get arrested there. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a legal place to paint, and it was normally in the worst neighborhood, and it was dangerous to paint there. You know what I mean? You had to be of a certain standard or be kind of tough to be able to paint in those places. You know, but you know there.
But somehow it became like a little bit divided, right? I mean,
I mean, but it shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? And
I agree.
And like I went to Indonesia at the beginning of the year, and it was amazing. The scene there is incredible. Everybody paints together, so there isn't any separation. And the older generation teaches the younger generation how to paint and how to do tags, and the standard there is incredible. And like if you do street art, then you're the character person on the wall. Do you know what I mean? For that day, or but you know, a lot of people really want to put. It's more people who've only been painting for 2 years, or people who have shitty attitudes that really want to make a separation. Do you know what I mean? They're like, no, this is graffiti and this isn't. Do you know what I mean? You're like, really? What? Who the fuck are you? Do you know what I mean? Like, like how can you say what you do is different from anything else? Do you know what I mean? And I would rather see something painted than not painted. And if somebody's got a good spot or they're doing something original, then that's great. Do you know what I mean? You're in graffiti or street art, you're supposed to be trying to be original. You're not supposed to be trying to emulate somebody else, or the whole point was to find yourself within that art form and show what you can do by yourself. Do you know what I mean? And
that's why so many writers developed from graffiti to, I don't know, design, or had
and they became
great careers.
Because they were original. You know what I mean? And but lots of people are like, oh yeah, I'm just borrowing this style. And you're like, you're just copying somebody else's shit. Like, that's whack.
Okay. Talking about this now, I remember this movie about about the beef between Robbo and
Robbo and Banksy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, but that
is it? I mean, is it?
Well, I knew both. I mean, I met Banksy maybe 9 times before he became super famous, and he was cool. Do you know what I mean? And comes from a writing background. You know what I mean? He put on jams in the 90s and brought all of the best writers from the whole UK to go to Bristol to do jams. Do you know what I mean? So he's heavily respected within the old school scene. You know what I mean? Like I went to Dismaland and I was shocked on how many train legends were actually there that were helping out, and I was like, you're getting all these people paid. Do you know what I mean? And which is really important, and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And they just like, oh yeah, fuck Banksy, but and you're like, what are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? Like, half of you wouldn't be doing graffiti if it wasn't for that book. You got it for Christmas, and then you started doing stencils, and now you're like, yeah, I don't do street art, I'm a real writer. And you're like, yeah, but you were influenced by that shit, so shut up. And like, that whole thing, like, when I was a kid, Robbo was one of my heroes. Do you know what I mean? I loved his tags and I loved his trains, and he was one of the superstar. He was like one of the original train monsters. Yeah, man. So he quit for many years, and then Banksy did that piece over his thing, which brought him out of retirement. But you know, I knew Robbo as well, and I was friends with him, and he knew that his newfound fame was because of the war against each other. Do you know what I mean? It was good for both of them at that time. People weren't talking about Banksy, and then it got them both in the newspapers, and Robbo, like, it was great. Robbo came back. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately he had an accident, hurt himself, and was in a coma for a year and a bit, and passed away, and that was devastating for all of us. Do you know what I mean? He was
but that beef was good for both
it
of them,
was
like
good
you
for
said,
both of them,
the
but
culture
I
also,
didn't really believe it.
Okay.
You know, I had his close friends saying that it was, but I know that they both had mutual friends. And they could have, both of them could have talked to specific people and made it stop in 20 minutes, but it was good for both of them. You know, it made them both important again. You know what I mean? So, you know, unfortunately, it didn't work out for Robbo for the fact that he passed away. You know what I mean? And so then, because of that movie, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it was set up and he got murdered and stuff like that." And it's like, come on, man, like
conspiracies.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like it's a good story. You know what I mean? But
people,
you know, it's I just, you know, I do miss John. He was a good guy. I know that when he was younger, he was probably. I mean, I knew who he was as a kid, and I never went near him because he had a reputation of being tough. So. I didn't want people at that time to know who I was, so I never said who I was until I was like 25 and I was big enough to protect myself, you know. So a lot of writers didn't know who I was, and I liked it that way. But then by the time I was 25, I was doing so many youth projects and most kids knew who I was or what I looked like.
And now they're going to find out, I mean, the podcast, I mean, they're going to see.
Yeah, but I mean, but years ago I started being like, it's me, because I'd been arrested so many times. Do you know what I mean? Like, the police knew who I was. You know what I mean?
Didn't make any sense to hide.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got nothing to be ashamed of. I'm really proud of what I've done within graffiti, and I think people should be proud of what they do. I mean, I get that people don't want to be known. That's perfectly fine. If you're painting trains and doing illegal shit constantly, then cool.
Of course.
People shouldn't know who you are. But the police will know who you are if you're doing that shit anyway, because they know. They need to know if you're doing dodgy shit. They're gonna know. That's their job. They're not stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's you'd like to think they are, but they're fucking not.
No.
So, but you know, I get it.
Cool, great. Well, thank you for talking to me.
Yes.
I hope it was
It's an absolute pleasure.
Nice, yeah.
Hip hop's in the building.
Yeah, exactly. Your plan is to stay here till Monday, paint every day, I assume.
Yes, yeah, if I can.
Yeah, so Saturday is the main event, let's say, with the wall. We're gonna paint together.
Yes, that'd be great.
What do you think? I mean, you had the chance to look around a little bit Sarajevo. What do you think of
the graffiti?
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing, man.
Like it?
Yeah, really good. There's a really good high standard here, from tags to throw-ups to rooftops to pieces. Like, really good graffiti, man. It's really nice to see, and it's obviously, you can see that it's generational. You can see that the style came from a place. It's not. I mean, obviously people have in the internet now, but you can see that there's a style from this city.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And it's cool.
The first generation was like mostly refugees that used to live in Europe while the war was going on, like me and a few other guys who belong to that generation. So we basically all came back from Germany and started to do graffiti there, and we were influenced, of course, by the German style. So that's maybe when you see some of the graffitis from the older guys, that you can see maybe something in common with German style. But you can
see that in Hungary. Hungary's got its own style completely, but you can see the influence from Germany. And then if you go to like Croatia, you can see the kind of Italian, Swiss and German influences within that. You know what I mean? Because it's closer. You know what I mean? It's great, man. I love it.
Cool. Thank you again. I hope to see you in Pristina maybe, or somewhere else.
Yeah, you must
in
come.
The neighborhood.
Yeah,
I would
come
like
and hang out.
I would like
do some rapping for the people.
I would love to.
Cool. Nice one. Peace and blessings.
Hvala vam na gledanju i to je to. Vidimo se sljedeće sedmice, ko Bog da. Inshallah. Peace out.